reconvene. Okay, welcome back to our meeting. We're going to reconvene, and in order, the next item would be this, item 9. But we are going to move to the executive officer's report, nomination for president-elect of NCWS, item F.
Yeah, we're, Mike, do you think, Chris, do we need to do a roll call? They're all in person. Okay. We'll do a roll call first.
President Hartley,
Here.
Vice President Wong. Stud,
Here.
Dr. Asghari,
Here.
Ms. Garcia,
Present.
Mr. King, Mr. Martinez,
Here.
Ms. Matheson,
Here.
Mr. Sanchez,
Present.
Mr. Villegas.
Here.
The quorum.
Thank you, Selena. So Rick, if we could, we have Dr. Q.
Yeah, so for those of you that are real new, former board member from just a few months ago termed out Mohammed Qureshi, who is Dr. Q to us. He's very active at NCWS. He's the current Western Zone Vice President, and he is in line to be nominated for President-elect for NCWS next spring at the Western Zone meeting, and he is asked to be officially nominated by this board for that position. So he is attending virtually, and I think he has something he wants to say.
Well, thank you, Rick. I am. It's nice to hear you all at least and sort of see you. I miss being there, obviously. I did pick up that Christina took over lunch duties from me. Didn't hear the part where you finally selected, but I heard that. Officially, the nominations for president-elect are not due until probably late January, but given the schedule of meetings and the things that were going to be on your agenda, it seemed prudent to try and get this one out of the way. As you know, I've been serving as the vice president for the Western Zone, thanks in large part to the nomination and efforts of the board. And I am requesting an opportunity to continue and become hopefully the president-elect next May in Montana. And so that does require that the board nominate me. I can tell you that to the best of my knowledge, I meet all the criteria for eligibility and should be eligible to run unless somebody finds something that I haven't discovered yet. And I think I'll just leave it at that.
Would entertain a motion to
I will move to elect nominate to Dr. Q. Should I say the whole name? But I think, Selena can deal with it. To be the next president-elect for the NCWS organization.
Thank you.
Second.
Wilfredo second? And any discussion? I will suggest, or not suggest, I will say that in my time, having been to the last couple of zone meetings and the last couple of annual meetings, that Dr. Q has always been well prepared, understood the issues, and was ready to represent properly without reservation. I would support his nomination.
Thank you.
Public comment?
Yeah, public comment. And online, is there any comment?
We are open for public comment on the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please tap that hand button at the bottom of the screen to raise a hand. You may dial call-in users may dial *3 to raise a hand. And anyone using a keyboard may type in the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Let us take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes. Is there any other discussion?
Only thing I'd like to add is that what happens after this is I'll prepare a letter for a president's signature that is sent to NCWS as a nomination, just letting you all know.
Selena, I think we're ready for a vote.
President Hartley,
Yes.
Vice President Wong,
Yes.
Dr. Amistad,
Yes.
Dr. Ascari,
Yes.
Ms. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. King,
An enthusiastic yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Very much yes.
Mr. Villegas.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you all.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I think at this time we'll move back to sunset review.
We did sunset review. We would normally go back to item 8, strategic plan discussion,
Yes.
but it was brought to my attention during the lunch break that someone from the public here, since we took the sunset review out of order, he was not in attendance to make public comment on that. And I think you wanted to make public comment on that, Alan? If that's okay with you guys?
For sure. I mean, as long as there's nothing prohibiting it from Robert Rules of Order.
No, he just wasn't, since we took it out of order, he didn't have an opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for indulging me, Rick. Much love. Yeah, I had a communication from one of our board members in regard to item 9, the experience in lieu of education for geologists. And his concern, he works for the Department of Water Resources, which is one of our larger agencies with geologists. I don't know the exact number, but it's hundreds between them and Caltrans and some other agencies. And I don't know if it's a singular issue or potentially more people, but he said that his understanding is that you need field experience, whether it's university or private work experience now to qualify for the PG. And that he was worried because when he was going to school, they didn't have field experience as part of the curriculum. And I talked to Rick and he explained me the genesis of why this proposal came about. It makes a lot of sense. But his concern is that since the pandemic occurred, these large agencies that have geologists for state workers, they're kind of like missile silos, very specific work. Pandemic just made it even stronger silos. So a lot of people were either in the office or in the field and there was no cross training. So it may be a particular issue for the new hires in the last 3 years, but his concern is he won't be able to qualify for the PG exam. And I just am bringing that forward as a concern. I don't know if it's, like I said, a singular issue or how this affects, because I really don't understand everything, this proposal yet. It just came out on the agenda that I read the other night and I got this comment, but I just want to put that forward on his behalf. Thank you.
And just to let you all know, I did explain to Alan what the discussion was about and that what he described is probably one of the examples that we've run into of why people have a hard time meeting education criteria years after the fact, after they have a degree in a related science. And that's one of the reasons why we're bringing this up. It's hard to go back and fulfill units after 10 or 15 years working. So, thank you, Alan. So I can move on to item 8, strategic plan discussion now.
Yes, please.
And so this will begin, the discussion will begin as a verbal update first in regards to objective 1.3, the continuing education committee report. I just wanted to provide the board with an update of what we've been doing. Of course, staff-wise, we've been more focused on sunset report than anything. But I was able to provide more information to the subcommittee, which is Christina Wong and Rosanna D'Antonio, two board members. I was able at their request compile some information. I forwarded it to them. That information is basically information that NCWS has related to what all the member boards have reported about continuing education requirements, NCWS policy position on continuing education, both in their laws and their rules. And then they also have, in an effort to standardize continuing education unit requirements at with all the member boards of NCWS across the nation, they've established guidelines, continuing professional competency guidelines. So I provided all this information. In addition, there is some information that's in ASBOG model law. I provided all that information to the subcommittee for them to review in preparation for another call for us to have a discussion of our next steps, where we want to go. I've also put together a draft questionnaire survey that we can send out. One of the things that we discussed as a subcommittee was to kind of gauge at a very high level interest or no interest, lack of interest from our licensing stakeholders in the state. And so I put together a draft questionnaire and Survey Monkey for that. It's a very short questionnaire. And both Rosanna and Christina have provided feedback on that, and Nancy has. So I'm making some final changes to that, and we'll discuss that at a future call with the subcommittee. And then one of the things we're thinking about doing is putting out that survey just to gauge what our stakeholders think. Because we think that's, you know, they're of course going to have the biggest impact on this. So we wanted to see what they thought. But that's where we're at with it. I don't know if Christina wants to add anything at this point. So that's that report.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
And we'll wait on public comment on that until we look at the other items. Might as well do them all together. So the other items, the material begins on page 145. So at prior meetings in April and June of this year, the board reviewed language of two objectives. And because we were trying to figure out, one, what expectations did the board have in terms of meeting those objectives and how to measure that we've met them. And then it evolved into, did we really like the wording of those objectives? By the way, Tina, we established this strategic plan for a few of you there. We established this strategic plan last year this time, and we finalized it. So this is kind of a recent strategic plan update that we're looking to update again. And so at these previous board meetings, two of our board members, Wilfredo and Christina, agreed to come up with proposed rewording of these objectives. First one is objective 5.5 and the other one is objective 5.6. And you can see them in your meeting materials. And I will turn it over to Wilfredo and Christina to explain what their thinking is on that.
145. .5. Yeah, so we actually did this at the meeting over lunch or something. And so we came up with a new language. It was simply disseminate information on licensure and engage in outreach to underrepresented populations so as to increase diversity among our professions. We felt that that was getting at the point we're trying to achieve. It's simple. It doesn't load up anything dangerous into the language. And it kind of gives the staff something meaningful to work towards. That was it? Oh, okay, the next one was to replace 5.6 with collaborate with the Department of Consumer Affairs to provide information to the public such that complainants are aware of how to properly file a complaint, understand the complaint process, and obtain awareness of the results of their complaints. Same logic there.
So I just want to add that, the purpose of rewording that objective is to make it more, we can quantify it and also satisfy, the concern from the staff that, how do we measure them? And so now we added clarity, to the original objectives. And so that at least down the road, we know how to, look back and see if it's been accomplished or not. So I guess that this is time to open for, the board to have question and see if, those language will be acceptable to you. And Rick also, the staff has also take a look at that and agree with it.
Yes, well, Fredo and Christina provided to us and asked that we were okay, and the managers, we all looked at it and we were fine with this rewording. We think it's better.
Yeah, and that was a goal from the last meeting of not coming up with new text right there that would then have different problems for the staff. So we gave the staff an opportunity to comment on it.
So I have one comment and one question. The comment would be, I think, in item 5.5, the sentence would be better structured if it read disseminate information on licensure to underrepresented populations and engage in outreach so as to increase diversity among our professions. So using all the same words, but moving that to underrepresented populations, I think is grammatically more correct.
I think the intent was to disseminate information to and to engage in outreach to. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
English.
All right. That's not the way I read it, but okay.
Nancy's not here, so I have nothing.
And then the question I had is in 5.6, obtain awareness of the result of their complaints. If someone files an anonymous complaint, they don't necessarily know the results of their complaint. Is that true? Rick, sorry, that question was for Rick.
It kind of is. I mean, they could follow the process in terms of if there is any action, like a citation or formal disciplinary action, they could find that out on their own. But there's nothing to, if it's anonymous complaint, we do not notify the complainant of actions. But
Yeah.
the other two conditions there, aware of how to properly file a complaint and understand the process, they could definitely be understanding of that.
I guess what I'm getting at is if at the end of the process, if a complainant was anonymous and didn't obtain awareness, would they look at what was written here and say, well, you guys said that you were going to make me aware? Is that
Well, I think these are directional goals and not like policy that needs to be complied with, right? So like this is the intention of the board trying to communicate to the staff. These are things that we'd like you to like make some effort at. And so, one of the things we were trying to achieve in 5.5, for example, the term underserved is a subjective thing and is a very difficult thing to measure, whereas underrepresented, you can come up with some metrics that kind of make sense, like by, some objective means. And then with 5.6 was strategy was really vague. And so this was like, some specific goals of like, just try to make these things easier. And that's something that they can kind of document, like these are some steps we took that we believe have achieved that. And then the board can judge that or not. I think it's not really as directly relevant to the public to like, well, you owe me this thing because it's in this document.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think another way to look at it is we could make you aware of the result if you chose to communicate in such a way that we knew how to communicate.
Right.
And also the point is really to, to look at what public awareness, we try to make it clear, the areas that, the public, can, what's within, the kind of the knowledge that they can have. So we came up with, file the complaint and, the complaint process, and then also be aware of the result. So, just to make it clear about their awareness, what kind of awareness.
Betsy and Kobe.
Thank you. I love the new wording. It's clear and direct. And you two are the fastest subcommittee we've getting a job done. So thank you. I like Wilfredo's potential, maybe edit, disseminate information on licensure to and engage in outreach to. If we added to after licensure, I think it will reduce questions in the future. And then also on 5.6, the last line, instead of obtain awareness of the result, I wonder if we could just say learn the result of their complaints.
Kobe, did you have a comment? Did I miss it did I miss anybody else?
Well, first of all, yeah, great work. Very, very much in favor of the changes to 5.5. I mean, I've thought maybe I'm not as grammar oriented as Nancy, but I like to think of myself as a grammarian. I don't know if the two is necessary or not. I understand the point. I think it works either way, and I can't think of it. The wording is a little awkward, but I can't think of any way to make it better. One thing I am wondering though, is SOAS necessary?
Is what necessary?
SOAS. So that's one comment. I think the word SOAS could be eliminated without just make it maybe a little better. And then the other, this is really more of a question. In the italicized language in Goal 5 outreach, it refers to regulation of the professions, and then we have diversity among our professions. I don't feel strongly either way, but, and I know that consistency is sometimes the hobgoblin of little minds, but it does seem to me that that if we're going to say the professions up above, why not say the professions in the goal, in the objective rather. So those are my two suggestions. I'm fine with 5.6 the way it is, and I understand the kind of obtain awareness. Obtain awareness, it seems to me, puts the onus to a certain extent on the complainant to get the information, whereas learn, I don't know, maybe not, but it could go either way on that.
I tend to agree with that, which is, I think the intent here is for the staff to make the information available. And whether it's taught to you or not is really not super relevant.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I don't object to any of the wordsmithing, although I'm not sure that that actually changes the meaning at all.
No,
And
it
since
doesn't.
the staff is comfortable with it.
Yeah.
It might be worthwhile just kind of leave it alone, but I won't get in the way.
So the task, should you accept it, will be that whoever makes the motion has to clearly word exactly what you decided on out of all those comments. And I would suggest you
Well-
do one at a time.
Yes.
I'm always happy to offer an well, yeah, and I will offer a motion to adopt objectives 5.5 and 5.6 as written with the following amendment. In 5.5, strike the word so as and replace the word our with the. That is the motion.
Second.
Is that a motion just for 5.5?
Just
No.
for-
It was
So I got the SOAS. Where's the hour that you're replacing with
in the same sentence.
Okay.
Our professions should read the professions.
So to be clear, Kobe, you're suggesting no changes to 5.6.
That is correct.
Got it.
Any other discussion?
Sure. The motion is to adopt objectives 5.5 and 5.6 as written with the following amendment in objective 5.5 to strike the words so as and to replace the word hour with the.
Is there any public comment? Is there any online public comment?
We are now accepting public comment on the motion. If you would like to make a comment, please tap that hand button to raise a hand. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand.
I would just
Everyone
like to
may-
remind that this is also public comment related to item 8A too.
Yeah,
What he gave the report on.
the continuing education.
So if you have a comment on continuing education or the motion, please raise that hand or type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Looking around, I see no request for public comment online.
Unless there's any further comment from the board, I believe we're ready for a vote, Selena.
President Hartley,
Yes.
Vice President Wong,
Yes.
Dr. Amistad,
Yes.
Dr. Ascari, Ms. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez.
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Yes.
Mr. Villegas.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Good work, Christina and Wilfredo. I believe we are up to executive officers report. Rick?
I think the discussion on the revisions of that took longer than it took you two to come up with the proposed language. Yes, executive officer report will begin with the rulemaking status report on page 151. This is no different than the last meeting because our priorities have been centered on applications and sunset review. So there's nothing much to discuss here unless you guys have any questions.
No questions, Rick.
Okay, I would suggest we hold off on public comment on this one until we also cover B and C, the BizMod and the personnel, and then I would suggest we cover a public comment, all those together. That's okay.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay,
and
so the BizMod project begins on page 152. For new board members, I'm going to say that a lot today, for new board members. So we embarked with the planning all started before the pandemic about moving online with the new application process for about half the boards at the Department of Consumer Affairs. We were one of 4 that started this project in 2019, and we got underway with it right when the pandemic started, literally in January, February 2020. So we've aggressively moved all of our applications and a lot of our processes online in the Connect system. It's worked out very well. We're still in development stage for some of the parts that we're seeing, primarily trying to finish up some of our license type applications, which I'll talk about. And also, as Tiffany alluded to earlier, in the early stages of this, we did start with the complaint process, moving it online, which we thought that would be very beneficial to the complainants. Apparently more beneficial than we thought because we're receiving more complaints than we ever have. But we still need to work extensively in the back office side to help her staff in managing and monitoring the caseload. There are some aspects that are already there for them, but it's not anywhere near where we need to be. So currently, where we're at, and it's at the top of page 153, we're in the fall, we're simultaneously in the fall release and a winter release. The fall release, which will happen real soon here, is related to the last few the fall release was related to some accounting and cashiering priorities that really affected all of the programs that we wanted to improve upon and make it better for cashiering, renewals and application fees and refunds and things like that. The winter release will focus primarily in order our structural engineer application because we're trying to time that with the changeover to the computer-based testing that the National Council is doing in CWS. And then we also have the traffic engineer and the geotechnical engineer in a pipeline that will hopefully all be released around the same time. That we were hoping to have those released earlier, but due to earlier issues we had early in the year with development priorities, these things have been pushed back. But we're hoping by the end of this calendar year, certainly sometime in January, we'll have those 3 applications online. And then our priority at that point, we only have a couple applications left, but our priority at that point will be the enforcement that I originally targeted for the last half of 2023, first half of 2024. Tiffany and her group, we are very much involved with the developer, the agile liaison, to hoping that we could work on the back office aspects of that. I know Tiffany has already started some things in preparation. That's where we currently are with that. If anyone has any questions.
I have a question. So I know it says go live, but are you guys doing like pilots along with that, or are they just strictly going live after they're doing testing on that?
We're doing what we typically do is we go through internal testing ourselves, and then we'll look at the right term. It's a special kind of test, regression testing. We'll do some regression testing on that, and then we'll go live with that release. We're not doing a pilot. These are really all based on the application structures that we already have in place that have been live since we kind of phased them in.
Okay.
Starting in September of 2020, and we've been releasing on about every 4 to 6 month schedule additional things. So we've kind of already got pilot projects behind us. We're at the stage where the first applications we did were like the foundation for these application types.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Add to that, our first application types were really our pilot project. They were the simplest applications we had for the in-training, the land surveyor and engineering in training. Those were our pilot projects, and they worked out really well.
I was just asking because sometimes if they just go live and there's a bunch of hiccups and it winds up kind of giving people a lot more headache than solving problems.
Oh, yes. Yes, you are absolutely correct.
Thank you.
I want to say, Mr. President, that for our new members who are used to the state of California botching every IT project, this has been an amazing success story, and we should be very proud of staff for pulling it off so well.
I think what he's saying is he loves you, Rick. Do you have anything on personnel or ABET?
On personnel, the only thing is, and Tiffany kind of mentioned it earlier, we did lose a longtime enforcement analyst who was also our probation monitor. We hated to lose her. She had a great opportunity, and we're happy for her with the opportunity she took, but we're also very sad to see her leave because she was very good with all the work she did for us. So Tiffany is already working to see what she can do to fill that role. So hopefully that would be something we can report on sooner rather than later and fill that position. That's the only change really in probation or in personnel at this point.
So can I ask a question? So Rick, maybe I should say that I love you too, right? So to get into the gang. Anyway, so how many openings or vacancies that the board has now?
Currently, we have, I believe it's 3 and possibly 4 vacancies. The 3 we've been holding open for about a year now has to do with, actually, I'm glad you asked this question because I was thinking about this earlier when discussion during enforcement. We kind of restructured a lot of our licensing and admin positions due to the way we now work in Connect versus the way we used to work with all the paper applications. So these positions, we are still trying to figure out the best way to allocate them within the units. They may not even stay in the current unit, given the way that we restructured our workloads and tasks. I think some of that's going to also be something that Tiffany's group is going to face too. Because we mentioned about how the number of complaints have increased, the timeframes have increased. I think that's something that's naturally happening right now. But once we get the back office side in and they can manage the work a little bit differently, I think you'll see that take a reverse trend because then they'll be able to manage it. I'm not necessarily going to say they can manage it with less personnel. I just think they'll be more effective at being able to manage it. I think that's going to have, I think what you're seeing also, in addition to Tiffany saying that there's been an increase in intake, I think you're also reflecting that it would have been nice to have the back office in there sooner rather than later. So we'll definitely be backfilling her position that we have the new person vacated. But the other 3, we're still licensing and admin are still evaluating it to see how it goes. Go ahead and ask for public comment on those 3 items, Mike, if you want.
Any public comment? Any online public comment?
We are now accepting public comment online. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial-in users will need to dial *3 to raise a hand. Everyone may type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Let's wait just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Looking around, I see no request for public comment. Do you wish to continue?
Yes.
I always have to give this a little bit of lag time. Moving on to ABET. ABET, as all the board members know, or most of the board members know, we did receive, first of all, ABET is the accreditation service for engineering, surveying, and in one case across the nation, geology degree programs. So they're considered board-approved degree programs. We don't look into the actual coursework. If they're ABET accredited, and that's not an acronym, if they're ABET accredited, then our board and regulations have accepted those as board-approved education toward work experience. What happens is every 2 to 4 years, they will visit each one of these campuses and do a review. It's usually about 2.5 day, very extensive review of the processes. And if the programs are amenable to it, they will invite board observers to watch the process because they know all the licensing boards can choose to accept or not accept their education for licensing qualifications. So every summer, we receive a request if there are any that are allowed this within California. We did receive a few this year. What happens is I reach out to the board and say, hey, here's the dates, here's the programs. Can anyone commit to attending it as a board observer? And then we submit those names to ABET and they get approved or not approved. Because you can't have it graduated from that same program or something. We're not allowed to say who the program is. It's confidential because of the nature of the review. But so you just missed that. I think I think you were the only one, Tina, probably missed that. I think the rest of you saw that email. We did get a couple that were able to, a couple people, because we also have our licensed staff members. By the way, Natalie King, staff civil engineer, registrar in the background there, for those of you who haven't met her. And she's going to be doing one of the visits, and I can't remember, I think Christina accepted one of the visits. So we're able to cover them this year, but they'll report back what they thought of the process after it. That usually happens in the fall, October, November timeframe. And then the rest of the year, we don't talk about ABET. So it's just that. But I'm just happy to say that we do have a couple of people that were able to commit to the dates. And I'll move on to ASBOG so we can group the public comment together. So the ASBOG, well, first of all, did anyone have any other comments about ABET before I move on?
Does not appear so.
Okay, ASBOG, I put in here a placeholder for possible action. Oh, we're waiting on public comment. I'm grouping them together. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. So the ASBOG, I put possible action in here because at the time I wasn't sure if we would receive agenda for what was information about what was going to be discussed at the board meeting. I'm sorry, the board meeting, the fall annual meeting. If you look on beginning on page 154, I do have the proposed slate of officers that ASBOG's going to vote on, along with a proposed budget. And you can see how detailed their budget is compared to ours. So tear it apart all you want, Kobe. And that's really the only information we have at this point. At the last meeting, you all selected Betsy as our resident geologist board member representative to vote on any actions at the ASBOG meeting. I don't have anything more to add at this point other than Josh Goodwin, our staff geologist registrar, will be attending also for a portion of the meeting with Betsy. I plan to attend virtually. This was an approved travel event. Betsy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
The reason there isn't more to vote on is that all of the member boards around the country had until October 1st to submit proposed agenda/action items. And the full set of meeting materials is usually available shortly before the meeting and provided electronically. The slate of officers, except for the secretary candidate, I know them all from attending ASBOG meetings. The secretary candidate, Craig Smith, well, they move up through the ranks, and secretary is usually the first rung on the ladder. Craig Smith has been active in ASBOG committees. I haven't been to an ASBOG meeting since before the start of the pandemic, and part of that is due to the travel ban, which has now been lifted. So I will actually be able to go to the next meeting in the spring in Dallas. But this one's in Spokane, so travel ban didn't apply to this one. But I'm hoping for some better geographic distribution among the executive committee officers in the future. But these are all good people, and I plan to vote for the slate. The budget, at every annual meeting, there's a financial report that includes a sub-report prepared by an independent CPA who reviews ASBOG's finances. And last year was favorable. I expect this year to be favorable also. I do want to ask whether some of the reduced expenses in the proposed budget are because of computer-based testing rather than paper and pencil testing, now that everything's gone to computers, finally. But anyone has any comments or things they want me to watch for? I will. Toby?
Yes, I have an idea about how we might be able to find someone to run for secretary from west of the Mississippi.
Yes.
I wonder who that might be.
I do not think I'm prepared to make that time commitment, but thank you for what I think is a vote of confidence.
It is.
Wait a minute. What do you mean by Western Mississippi?
West of the Mississippi.
Oh, west of the Mississippi. Oh, like, did you move out of state? I didn't.
I guess Missouri is west of the Mississippi, but nonetheless, from the west.
Well, this reminds me, regarding lifting of the travel ban, that's extra helpful because both ASBOG and NCEES are, their headquarters are in what these days are called red states. So a lot of the meetings are in states where travel was banned. The state wouldn't fund sending us to annual meetings or exam prep meetings or exam development sessions. So for ASBOG, the fall meeting is annual meeting plus 2 days of exam development. And I participate in that also. And then in the spring, there's an executive committee meeting and another 2 days of exam development. And that's what's in Dallas. It happens to be the 2 days before the total eclipse of the sun.
So fitting. Any other comments on ASBOG? And if not, then I would suggest go to public comment for ABET and ASBOG.
Any public comment regarding ABET or the discussion regarding ABET and ISBOG? Any online comment regarding ABET or ASBOG?
We are now open for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise a hand. Everyone may also type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Let's take just a quick moment to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, would you like to continue?
Yes, please. Rick, I think you were going to begin the report on NCWS.
Yes, sir, I will. So we've already covered nomination for president-elect. I'll introduce the annual meeting and then swing it to Mike and Christina, who were both there. So it was an interesting meeting. This was an approved meeting in Boston. This is the annual meeting that happens every August. This is NCWS is the organization who develops the national engineering survey and exams that all the licensing boards use. ASBOG, who we previously were discussing, produces the national exams for geologists. So we were at our annual meeting, and for the most part, it went about as expected. There was some interesting discussions. The big one was related to, there were two big ones. One was related to the examinations for Professional Surveyors Committee, the EPS committee motion, which was related to something that started in 2018 by this board, where we proposed separate exams for certain aspects of surveying, the public land survey system in this specific case, that has been debated since 2018 at NCWS. The current committee made a motion to move in that direction and accept that. It was determined at the Board of Directors meeting, which Dr. Q was at as Western Zone Vice President, the day before the annual meeting started. They were in Boston a day earlier for the Board of Directors meeting. It was brought to their attention that due to the prior actions by the council in adopting the move to this module or this separate divisional exam, that the motion was out of order. It did not need to go to council for approval because the council had essentially already approved it. And the council does not get involved in examination content. And there's actually already policies and policies in place at NCWS that says at that point, it's given to the respective committees for the committees to determine what's in the exam content and bring it to the Board of Directors for approval. So the Board of Directors, after learning this, because they had chosen not to take action on this, thinking the council was going to, they voted to approve the motion from EPS, so it was pulled from the agenda. Which, needless to say, there were a number of member boards that were not happy about that. They wanted to have a discussion. They wanted to make amendments. They wanted to change this. The parliamentarian was explaining to them that they were out of order and that the actual motion was out of order. And that the Board of Directors took the decision they did and acted in concert with their policies that everyone had approved. So needless to say, it was approved. It was already approved. And there did not need to be any discussions about it, despite efforts by some of the member boards. The other major, which I did not anticipate, goes back to NCWS being a national representation of representatives of the engineering surveying professions on a national level. They are commonly receive requests from organizations and people for money, grants. Hey, do something. So in the past, one of the controversial ones was an organization referred to as Engineers Without Borders and asked for millions of dollars. And in the past, the Board of Directors in CWS just made the decision themselves because it's not written in any rules or laws or policies of theirs or bylaws that it had to come to the council. But with that controversial one, the Board of Directors said, let's take it to the council. And this was about 5 years ago. Let's take it to the council because of the dollar amount. They brought it to the council. It was very controversial. Engineers Without Borders brought it to the attention. There was some initial funding that was given to them, but the request from the council was have it be monitored. But it also became aware now that the Board of Directors could do this without any intervention by the council all this time with all these requests. So everyone was like, how do we make this right? How do we make this better, a better process, better vetted? So through all the discussions, through various committees and task force over the last few years, NCWS has chosen to establish the NCES Foundation, which is a separate organization established under, in their case, South Carolina laws, specifically for the purpose to handle these type of requests and make decision on distributing monies to requests like this. NCWS Foundation would have a board of directors who would be appointed by the NCWS board of directors. The funding for the foundation, reporting and all that would be managed jointly by the board of directors and by the finance committee, who would all provide direction. And this would all be reported on at every annual meeting within the budget report for the council to approve. So they needed an initial outlay. They were finalizing all the paperwork. They're finalizing everything that needed to be put forth to establish this separate corporation underneath state laws. They put into the proposed budget $7 million to establish the foundation. I love Kobe's reaction. Yeah, you should have been there in Boston. $7 million. The reasoning behind this, which NCAAS leadership kind of acknowledged that they didn't really communicate it very well because they thought everyone was in tune and knew what was going on. Everybody has realized that the pandemic, everyone pretty much forgot what was going on pre-pandemic, and now everybody's getting back up to speed with things. So people flipped out in the $7 million. Their explanation was, we need to establish enough of a foundation of funding over there that the money that would be dispersed each year would only be dispersed off any earnings of that money. Otherwise, if you just put $50,000 in, $100,000, whatever you do, then they're not getting any earnings off of it and they're spending the money fully every year. They don't want to do that. And it does not, it represents a pretty substantial portion, but as of right now, their reserves are somewhere in the neighborhood of $40, $50 million. So it had it's large, but they still have lots of reserves. So there was a lot of controversy. The budget motion is always the last motion to be discussed at the annual meeting because there could be other actions that could affect the budget. I've got to drink something. So when that came up, there was an immediate request for amendment to approve the motion, approve the budget, striking out the $7 million to NCAAS Foundation. Well, there was all the uproar. They all wanted to discuss it. A parliamentarian told them they were out of order with certain things. They came up, they wanted to table the discussion to go back to zone meetings, to break out into the 4 zones to discuss it further. And the parliamentarian looked at the president, the chair, and said, that's up to the chair if the chair wants to agree to do that, because my understanding there's no other zone business to be done. Everybody's done with it all. And the chair said, it's my discretion. And she said, yes. And he's like, no. So then they made a motion to overrule the chairs. And they voted. She says, yes, you can vote on that. That motion failed by 1 vote. Then they continued to argue. And finally, someone stood up and called for the vote of the original motion, which overwhelmingly passed. Oh, yeah. So they allocated $7 million to NCAAS Foundation. So it was that was the only 2 real exciting moments in this entire meeting. The only other thing I'd like to mention before I swing it over, one, they did elect a new president-elect, Andrew Zotweiler from North Carolina as president-elect this year. They also elected the treasurer, who I can't remember who that was. I don't know if you 2 remember. I'll remember it and come back next meeting and let you know. I know it's someone I know, I just can't remember. And also there was an effort at the federal level where just prior to the annual meeting, President Biden met with Prime Minister from UK and established an agreement to work together and share resources across both countries. One of these is engineering resources, engineers. NCAAS jumped on that right away, and they're trying to work with UK to develop a memorandum of reciprocity for engineers either way, a mutual reciprocity agreement for licensed engineers. UK does not license engineers. They have a charter, Royal Charter of Engineers. but it's kind of like Canada. It's a professional society together with a licensing body all in one. So it's not specifically a licensing body like we are. So there were representatives from the UK there. Nancy and I actually, prior to all this, had been contacted by them, by the San Francisco representative at the UK diplomatic office. And we had a conversation with them before the annual meeting, and just kind of a break the ice kind of conversation. There were a couple representatives from UK there. Unbeknownst to me, when I wasn't around, they corralled our board members and had discussion one night at dinner. And so I couldn't save them. But they had a nice discussion about that. I had a discussion with the two representatives and the CEO of NCWS the next day. They're looking forward to doing some kind of mutual recognition with any and all the states. But they understand there's differences in the way states license in the United States versus other countries. They're very receptive to differences. So right now we're kind of in a wait and see mode to see what NCWS establishes or works out with them on this before we take anything any further. And that's how we kind of left it with them. And on that note, I'll swing over to Christina and Mike and whatever you two want to add to this whole conversation.
Sure. Yeah, there were a lot of people that came with their guns ready to shoot it out on some of those things, and it was a pretty interesting meeting at times. So yeah. So one of the things that happens is there's just a separate meeting of surveyors at this annual meeting and the zone meeting, and we had a really good presentation. I'm looking at a slide or photo of one of the slides from this gentleman's presentation, and it was really focused around the business side of land surveying. And simply put, he just doesn't think that land surveyors charge enough money. And so he has decided that he's going to operate his business, and he's not going to set his prices based on any hourly rates. He's going to figure out what the value of what his service is and charge differently. And so one of the slides I just want to talk about has the number of surveyors in the United States from last year's 34,000 surveyors. There's 1.1 million attorneys, which is a ratio of 32 to 1. There's over 3 million real estate agents, which is a ratio of 86 to 1. There's engineers at 15 to 1 ratio and architects at a 3 to 1 ratio. I mentioned all of those things for the same reason he did, which was we should be able to charge a premium as surveyors if there's so few of us, right? And yet, I mean, I've been on the board since 2020, and I could be wrong, I don't think we've ever had a disciplinary action that's come to us for electrical engineers or mechanical engineers or traffic engineers, maybe a structural once or twice. It's definitely civil engineers, but at least seemingly half of our disciplinary discussions revolve around land surveying. And I think in large part it's because land surveyors, painting with a broad brush here, but land surveyors love what they do, and they can be really crappy business people. So anyway, not really on a soapbox here, just it was something unique that I learned, and appreciated the opportunity to listen to this guy's talk. It was really interesting.
So I have to say, it's a really wonderful meeting for me this time. So apart from the regular business meeting, I actually joined the law enforcement program, and I have, I went to their ethics training, and also a very interesting workshop, 6 hours to learn about body language secrets. And I actually find it very beneficial. I was so excited and started to analyze my husband afterwards. So it was, I have to say, NCAAS really put on some good quality training. And so even me as a public member, I really feel that I have benefited from that. Also, as a public member, it's a really fun and different position to be on, for the meeting. So, and also, promoting the importance of, being the public member, how we really represent the public, and then also, reiterate the importance of public protection. It's a really, it's a definitely, to me, I take it very seriously, and have that forum, to be able to, just role model and, speak up, and public member don't eat people, we're actually, very beneficial and also, a very integral, part of public protection. So absolutely lovely. So, and you forgot to mention about the
wings.
meals. Yes, right. They have like,
Two best chicken wings I've ever eaten in my life.
and they have the New England clam bake, they just really, treat the members well. So I really encourage everybody, if you have the opportunity, join. It's very fun.
So that was the dinner hosted by NCWS for all the attendees. That's where the UK representatives corralled our board members as well. They were face first in the lobster and clam bake.
I think we know how to do diplomatic.
They did very well.
Yes, both of us, all
All of
parties.
you. Frank was there too. He's not here today, but Frank was there. And I
Very
will
good.
add that for those of you who have not been at NCWS meeting, we all vote electronically with a remote, and we have like 10 seconds to vote. Press 1 or 2. Christina has learned the difference between 1 and 2. But when there's multiple board members, they all have to kind of collaborate. How do we want to vote on this based on the direction from their individual boards? And one of them has a remote. And I will say these three were very in tune during the deliberations, and they were right on it in voting. We did miss one vote because we were discussing, but that happens occasionally, especially when there's 10 or 15 people from a board there trying to figure out how to vote. But these three were all in tune. Christina was taking notes the entire time. Mike's always taking notes. So it's really interesting, but they all three did really well.
I'll add one thing, and then Kobe, I know, has a comment. As new board members, we have 3 representatives from California,
What we have is
funded delegates.
every board has 3 funded delegates. Some boards pay to send more, but
Okay.
we had 3 there.
Okay, and in addition to those 3 funded, any first-time board members, or for new board members that have been on the board less than 2 years, I want to say, you don't count towards that 3 funded. So all 3 of you will be eligible if you want to, in addition to 3, we would have 6.
We have our 3 funded delegates each year to the zone meeting and to the annual meeting. And for the annual, I think we do it for both zone meeting and annual meeting now. If there's first-time attendees, if you've been appointed within the last 24 months of the date of that meeting and you have not previously attended, you can attend as a funded delegate.
So next zone meeting, Western Zone meeting, is in Montana in the spring.
In May.
And then in August, it's in Chicago, the annual meeting.
Right. So we're already approved no, we're not approved for Chicago. I haven't submitted that yet. Montana, that was a banned state. So I'll be submitting that now once we get further direction on how to submit that.
Kobe, you had a comment?
Rick, on the foundation, is it being, or has it been formed as a 501c3?
It's being formed similar to what NCWS is, but according to South Carolina state laws, there's a certain way that it has to be formed corporation-wise, being that they're a not-for-profit corporation. Yeah, so working with their attorneys and filling out all the paperwork for all that. And they expect to have that all done by the end of this calendar year. Yes. I offered to be on that board of directors, by the way.
You did.
Oh, yeah. I find it really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, usually when an organization has a foundation, a parallel foundation organization, it's usually a 501c3, and they usually, and maybe that's not the purpose here, but they usually use it to raise tax deductible donations. Obviously, NCES's income is all government money, so that wouldn't really work unless.
But it's not all government money. It's got most of their money comes from examinations.
Uh-huh.
So it's most of, the money they have in annual fees coming from member boards
Uh-huh.
are very small compared to the
Gotcha.
examinations. So, and basically NCWS, the entity, will be funding the foundation.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, which is kind of weird.
It sounds like what they're really doing is they're trying to transfer this responsibility
To somebody else.
to a group of people that can be held accountable and have direction without it just being the CEO, for example, or the board of directors. They want it to be more accountable.
I'm sorry, the whole thing just sounds strange to me. I mean, the board of directors generally is the most accountable part of an organization, and
Uh-huh.
president, obviously. I mean, this sounds like they're reducing accountability by creating a separate organization
I
that
think
doesn't
there's
have any function except to
distribute,
distribute.
decide and distribute money within the guidance of the finance committee and the council. Yeah.
which is the whole organization.
Which is the whole organization. We're one vote of that council, yeah. Oh, it sounded funny. I mean, there are people just like in any other world that don't trust the situation and want more control over it, but it'll be interesting to see how it evolves.
Yeah, very strange. All right.
The other thing I'd like to add is there's always a consent calendar and for motions, and then the motions that are out for voting. So the first action is, does anything want to be pulled? I thought one motion that was pulled from the consent calendar would be of interest to this board. It was the bylaws motion 1, which pertained to who was eligible to be president-elect of the organization, because historically it had to be a licensed engineer or a licensed surveyor. So the proposal this time in this bylaw, based on prior discussions by everyone at NCWS, was to add in that a public member of a board, of a licensing board, could also be eligible. For the newer members, we are rather unique in this country as far as having public members on licensing boards, let alone a majority like we are. 8 of our board members are public members. Most other states only have a few public members, if at all. A lot of them don't even have any public members. Even some of them have a public member I call a token public member because they're not even allowed to vote. So it's become controversial at the national level to have public members of licensing boards be more involved in the national organizations. Kobe has seen this, Christina has seen this the last few years. So this bylaw change was to add public member allowed to be president-elect. It failed. It was a very controversial vote and it failed. So thought you guys would like to know that. No, it was not overwhelmingly, I don't believe. I can look back through and see. The only other thing I'd like to point out is that who was elected treasurer, national treasurer, was Carl Tonander, special engineer from the New Mexico board in our western zone. So that's who was elected as treasurer for a 3-year term.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How is the NCWS funded? You guys just touched on it a little bit, but how exactly, what's the breakdown between the funding that's provided by board membership dues apparently, or, and?
So basically, they're made up of 69 member boards, which is the 69 jurisdictions representing the United States that license engineers and or surveyors. So in the Western zone, all of us are combined boards, engineers and surveyors are one board. When you get into the Northeast and the Southern zones, some of them are separate boards. Illinois is the standout. They actually have 3 separate boards. They have a professional engineer board, a structural engineer board, and a land surveyor board. And it's because that's the way they've always been, and they're not going to change. And so that's why there's 69 votes. There's also Guam, Puerto Rico, the territories. We all pay an annual fee to be a member of the board, a member of the NCWS, based on the number of our licensees. It's a 3-tiered system. 85% of the boards meet the highest tier. We, of course, are the highest tier. The threshold is 6,500 licensees. Well, we're 110,000. So we're almost all of us pay that, but $6,500 a year is not what they're going to subsist on. NCWS is a rather large organization, been around for about 104 years, 70 employees, and they administer in the neighborhood of about 50 to 60,000 engineering and surveying exams every year. And so for the most part, these people taking these exams pay NCWS directly for the exams, for a privilege taking the exam. I shouldn't say privilege, for the ability to take the exam underneath the guidelines of whatever board they want to be licensed under, whether they meet those requirements. Because we all have slightly different requirements. And so they're all sitting for those exams. So their primary purpose is to provide examinations for licensing boards to use in determining competency for licensure. And so when you take 50, 60,000 times anywhere between $225 to $1,000 an exam, that's where the revenue comes in. The revenue is, I think, in the neighborhood of about 20 million a year.
Very rich already.
Yes.
So, and you said that member boards our size pay 6,500 per year?
6,500. Yeah, every year we pay $6,500 membership fee.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Rick, to answer Kobe's question about the votes, so the public member, so it's 27 yes and 37 no.
Oh, so yeah, it was close. Yeah. I knew it was close. I just couldn't remember. That probably represents boards that do not have public members or told the public members to shut up or something. I don't know. But that's our report from that. It was a very good meeting as far as we're concerned. And we'll start reporting on the upcoming zone meeting in May in Bozeman, Montana, starting the next board meeting.
Public comment?
I would go to public comment on this, yeah.
Any public comment? I'm taking somebody to the train station. Not sure who yet. Any public comment online?
We are now accepting public comment online. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. People may also type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Looking around, I see no requests for public comment. Do you wish to continue?
Yes, please. Update on outreach, Rick?
Hang on, I'm coming down from that discussion. Okay, so the outreach report begins on page 157. I'll give a little bit more background for the newer board members here. So we continuously perform outreach, our staff. Mainly our 4 licensed staff members and me, though occasionally someone from enforcement will do outreach. We publish what we've done in the newsletters that are published quarterly. We provide a report to the board each time also. At the request of the board to let you know all what we're doing. Sometimes even board members will attend outreach with us. It's a great way to learn what's going on. So this is our board meeting report. This, I believe, is basically what we reported last time. Our outreach coordinator staff member was not able to get a new one in time. But you'll see, we regularly are performing outreach. Natalie, who left the room, who she's regularly performing. We have 4 licensed staff members. We have a staff land surveyor, a staff geologist, a staff electrical engineer, and a staff civil engineer. And so their responsibility is primary applications, reviewing applications from a technical review point of view, qualifying the experience and the education, outreach, and then assisting Tiffany and her staff in evaluating the technical aspects of any kind of complaint or investigation. Any questions on outreach?
Any board comments? Public comment? Yes, sir.
Alan Escardo representing PEG. I just want to make a quick statement of appreciation to board staff. They did a number of presentations to our membership, Natalie King and Mike Donaldson recently in May, and another one in San Bernardino. I've gotten a number of feedback from our members, how much they appreciated it, how much they learned, and it selfishly, I really appreciate it. I promote it I make a quarterly report to all our sections, and I emphasize this is available and urge members to schedule these outreach meetings because my experience, I get 4 to 5 contacts a year, basically on problems with qualifying experience. And I'd rather have that addressed up front in these outreach meetings, and it'd be less work for me and your staff if they could address it ahead of time and get quality applications that sail through instead of having to rewritten or et cetera. So I really do appreciate the work that they've done. I went online and I reviewed the last one. It's about an hour long, and I learned a few things since it's been over 30 years since I did my application. Some things have changed. So I really do appreciate the work they've done. And watching the presentation, I thought it was very well done and very professional. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob McMillan, California Land Surveyors Association. Echoing Alan's comments, really appreciate the outreach from board staff. And in September, I had the opportunity to see Dallas speak to the desert chapter of CLSA prior to his presentation at Cal Poly Pomona. Great presentation, extremely well attended for our meeting. Appreciate everything the board's doing. Thank you.
Terrell.
I have to report on, if you want to ask for a public comment on that last item, and you can move on then.
I think that does it for public comment here. We just need to check on online public comment.
Thanks for thinking of us. We are accepting public comment online. If you'd like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Better yet, tap that hand button at the bottom of the screen to raise a hand. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand. Let's take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no requests, would you like to continue?
Yes. President's report, who's that? Kobe has something to say.
Well, I have a board member activity to report on. Yeah, I mean, I could have said this during the NCES report, but last year, some of you may know that I served on the special committee on bylaws, which is pretty appropriate. And that was interesting for sure. This year, much to my surprise, I was appointed to the advisory committee on council activities. I'm the only public member on that committee. We had our first meeting, I think last week, and that was pretty interesting. It is advisory, but I kind of just have the impression that there's a fair, I don't know if power is the right word, but there's a fair amount of influence as to kind of changes. Yeah, that's my sense. And I usually when I attend a new body for the first time, I try to watch and listen and not speak too much. And I'm sure that surprises a lot of you, but in any case, a lot of the charges that were assigned to ACCA came out of a lot of the work that we did on the bylaws committee. And so since I was there when all that got discussed, I did have, some things to say in explaining how it came to be and what that committee was intending when they sent that over. So pretty interesting, a lot of work to do on this committee. And I don't know who was responsible for appointing me to this, but I'm not sure whether to thank or curse, but in any case, I did want to at least report on that. I'll have to think about that.
Go ahead, Christian.
So I have just, kind of sum up what my activities. So of course, I attended the NCEES meeting, and also just another note is that, I'll be involved with the APET site visits, and it's going to happen next week for my visit. So more to report later.
Cool. Anybody else? I don't really have anything other than the NCEES event that we were at. So I think we can move on. Oh, public comment? Any public comment? Public comment from online.
We are once again accepting public comment online. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand. Or you may also type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen to indicate your intention. Let's take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Looking around, I see no request for public comment. Do you wish to continue?
Yes, we will. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the July 27th, 2023 board meeting minutes. I will assume that we have all read them in their entirety. Begins on page 160. Yes, 162.
Yeah, just make a quick comment. I've never done this before, but I want to thank and applaud Selena for the job she did on item 8. That was a really complicated discussion that went around and around on a lot of different things, and I did a great job, I thought, in capturing what people were saying and some of the nuances that we were talking about. It was good job. Thank you. I'm happy to move approval if that's appropriate.
It is. And a second from Guillermo. Discussion?
Yeah, I'll second.
Oh, we have a
Oh,
second. Any comments from board members? Discussion? Do we ask for public comment on the minutes? Okay. Public comment? Any public comment? Any online public comment?
If you'd like to make a comment on the motion, please type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. Better yet, tap that hand button at the bottom of the screen or dial *3 if you're a dial-in user, and we will take comments in the order they are received. Looking around, I see no request for public comment. Do you wish to continue?
Yes.
Mr. President, I have an item that I think is under board member activities. I was hoping we could put new board member Christina Garcia on the spot and ask us to introduce herself and talk a tiny bit about her background. And welcome.
Hi. You guys can call me, because I know there's two Christinas, but you guys can call me Tina as well if you guys prefer. I don't mind. My background is I'm a cybersecurity risk specialist for a public utility or for a utility company. So that's a little bit of my background. I did do political science as well. So I like law and computers, which is not very common apparently. But I'm really excited to be here and I'm glad that everyone looks so energized and they look like everyone likes each other. So I'm excited to be part of this. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it stays that way.
Thank you.
I can sense the love from everyone.
So
I
I like to say that you interrupted yourself and didn't take a vote on that.
Right. We need to take a roll call vote, Selena, for approval of the minutes.
President Hartley,
Yes.
Vice President Wong,
Yes.
Dr. Amistad,
Yes.
Dr. Ascari, Ms. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez,
Abstain.
Mr. Villegas.
Yes.
Motion carried.
So now you're going to recess the open session to go into closed session.
Yes, we are.
And then you'll reconvene in open session at the end of closed session, just announce the results of closed session and then adjourn the meeting.
10-4.
I have a question for Rick. The item that we put on the next agenda, can we add what Carl was suggesting, significant structure requiring?
Yes.
License.
Would you like that underneath the sunset report discussion or as a separate item?
As whatever you suggest.
Okay. Well, let me consult with Nancy and we'll talk about it and see what we think is most appropriate. At this stage, we may keep it separate.
That's
But
fine.
if that doesn't prevent you guys from combining it if you need to later on.
It doesn't need to be combined.
Okay.
If you suggest it be separated, it can be separated.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
It's 3 o'clock. Let's take a 10-minute break. What's that, Rick? We are back in open session and Tiffany will report back from closed session.
Yes, in closed session, the board took action on 4 stipulations, 2 proposed decisions, a petition for reconsideration, and discussed litigation as noticed.
Having no other business, we are adjourned.